Yes, we are.
Yes, we are. Okay.
Does anybody know?
Well, I put a mayor's Facebook post out, so a couple folks know.
Is Dalton going to be here?
Dalton is just joining.
Okay, we'll just wait half a sec while we wait for Dalton to join.
With two Jazzes. Jazz Squad. The twins. Okay,
Okay, Jazz and Dalton, are you with us?
everybody's here.
We are.
Okay, good. All right.
How come I'm not in there? still?
So, welcome staff and welcome fellow members of council and anybody in the public who's watching tonight for this special committee of the whole meeting, Tuesday, January 18th, 2022 at 5 p.m. This meeting is being held electronically via council chambers located at 39 South Shore Road in Lake Cowichan, BC. For those of you who aren't aware, the special committee of the whole meeting was called just to deal with items specific to the budget or anything any member of council wishes to add tonight. So with that, I'd like to acknowledge that this meeting is being held in the unceded territories of Subasit, translated meaning people of the lake, the folks that we live, work, and play happily together as neighbors. So with that, I'd like to call this meeting to order at 5:01 and ask for any introduction of late items. Don't see any hands, but there is
There's one.
Councillor Sandu, go ahead.
I just had a question. Are you going to outline the process?
Yeah, that's right down under new business.
Okay, can I just ask one question? Will we have the department managers present anything differently to us than what's already been given, like their wishes and wants to type of thing?
Well, I'll let staff answer that when we get down there. I believe they've already had staff meetings regarding the budget, so but I'm sure they'll all have time to comment as we move through the process.
Okay.
If that's answers the question good enough.
For now it does, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, okay. All right. So there's a couple of amendments. Under new business, we have A, B, and C. I talked to the director of finance today, and it makes more sense if we do B before A. So just to let you know, we're going to swap those two around. And you'll see why it makes sense when we get there. And also under new business, we'll call it D. They'll just like to discuss a slight change in meeting time for tomorrow. And we're just going to move it ahead an hour, but we'll get everybody's comments when we get to it. There's been a little bit of conflict with staff, I hear, so we can discuss that when we get there. So with that, I'm looking for a motion to approve this agenda as amended. Moved by Councillor Bomaka, seconded by Councillor McGonigal. Scratch his cheek, so we'll call that seconded by Councillor McGonigal. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So with that, we can move right on down to new business because there's nothing else on this agenda. So just have a few opening comments to describe the budget discussion process. So you'll notice on tonight's agenda, we have A, B, and C, and we've reversed the order of A and B, of course. Sewer water utility funds 2022 operating capital with comparatives. That's A. Sewer water utility funds 5-year operating capital estimates. That's B. And After that, if we get that far, general fund 2022 preliminary operating expenditure estimates. And yes, you are not seeing much to do about revenue. That will come in what I would term as step 4. So step 1, 2, and 3 we're doing tonight, even though it says ADC. But let's call it 1, 2, 3. And step 4, staff will take back anything they hear tonight. And if nothing changes, then of course they'll apply it to report, much as you see on our weekly finance administration, with the new numbers for 2022, in which you'll be able to see the difference between 2021 and 2022 as far as percentage increase and things like that. And so that's what you'll see there, but we're not going to be at step 4 tonight. So let's just plug away through 1, 2, and 3. It doesn't all have to be done tonight, but I'd like to see us set ourselves a limit of about 2 hours. So after we finalize these discussions, staff will amalgamate any amendments made to the above numbers and then present a draft budget and a 5-year plan that will include revenues, which will also show council the net effect of as compared to 2021. So staff in a few moments will walk us through each section of the attachments, as I would like would like to encourage everyone to ask any and all questions if you require further clarification. So in other words, please don't hold back on any questions. This can be a complicated process if we aren't all accountants, so please make sure you're clear on what you see so you can understand it. As we go through this process, I acknowledge that each of us may as well have suggestions or thoughts on the level of service we as a local government wish to provide our residents in the town of Lake Cowichan. I would like to suggest that we get to step 4 of this process, that this would be the time to amend any numbers by recommending an increase or a decrease in service levels in specific areas. That would in turn affect the numbers involved. Please have your comments and recommendations ready for sure at step 4 at this time, so that any specific amendments may be made in the form of a resolution. And by that, just if we can do that, then we can have good, fulsome discussion, because this is a committee of the whole. This isn't a roundtable budget discussion. It's a committee of the whole. It's open to the public. So after you make some notes, and when we get to step 4 especially, please be prepared to make resolutions to amend numbers so that we can all discuss it and come to an agreement on any changes. So now I'd like to turn it over to staff to walk us through the numbers, and they're going to go section by section, and starting with sewer and water utility funds 2022 operating and capital with comparatives. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Fernandez now to start the process.
Okay, each year we go through a process where we deal with 3 budgets: the sewer, the water, and the general fund. And so today we're dealing with the sewer, which includes the capital expenditures and the revenues. And it's the same with the water fund. And with the general fund, we're just dealing with expenditures. So with that, I'll let Ronnie go through the process.
Okay, so are we going to share the screen before we start? Or?
Do that.
So we'll start with the sewer fund, and I'll begin as soon as that screen is shared.
Can you see it?
Yeah,
Yes.
so if you scroll right to the bottom of that, we'll start with capital first. No, the bottom of page 1. There we go. Nope, go up.
No,
Up 1 page to the first page. There we go. Okay, that's good. So here are the preliminary, in the last column is the preliminary budget numbers for sewer capital. So these are the capital projects that we're planning to undertake. I'm going to pause for 1 second and see if we can get rid of this feedback. 1 second.
So you can see the big dollar item is the sewer treatment plant upgrade, which is broken up into 2 years. It'll be in this year and next year. While we're waiting for Ronnie to get going. Maybe Jazz, you can step in there and talk about the 2 items, the 3 items above it. The superintendent disappeared.
I think Ronnie's got it figured out here.
Okay. The lift station number 4, you want to deal with that?
Yeah, so we have 4 items in the sewer capital, starting with the lift station upgrade. 1 and 4 is going to be upgraded, and we've budgeted 100,000 for that. 100,000 for the Greendale engineering. Sewer inflow and infiltration, 250,000. And we are planning, or we've made an application for the sewer treatment plant upgrade. And the first portion of that is being budgeted this year at $3 million. So those are the 4 items in sewer capital. And if there's any questions, the superintendent of public works is here and could respond.
Councillor Sandhu and then Councillor Vomaka, please.
Thank you. With the I&I, is that the same area, or is each of these budget years different area of the town?
There's a little bit to do still up in that area, Arbutus, but depending how much we get approved here, then we'll be moving on. We're still working on a few other items before we can really pin it down which areas we're going to work on this year.
Okay, thank you. Does that answer your question good enough for now? Okay, Councillor Vomaka.
Thank you. So the 3 million for the sewer treatment plant upgrade, is that a conditional on whether we get a grant or not?
It is, yes.
Okay, so
For council's information, the total budget for that is estimated at over $7 million. So we've broken this up over 2 years.
and when we proceed to the 5-year plan, that'll come forward there.
Councillor Sandhu, go ahead.
Just a question on like with the grant process. So if we don't, fingers crossed, we receive some money this year, how many more years can we keep offsetting this? And I know we apply for grants every year, but how many more years are we able to hold off in doing this project if we don't get any grant funds? That makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can.
that's a good question. Go ahead, Mr. Fernandez.
Yeah, you basically can't do it by yourself. I mean, there's no way the town can afford to undertake this project by itself. So without the grant funding in place, it's just impossible to move forward.
Can I follow through then to the
Go ahead.
CAO? So part of our grant is because we're a small community, basically based on residential tax base, not industrial. Is that part of our grant application? Like where?
Is that the rationale, you mean?
Yeah, just
Yeah, no.
no. Okay, thank you.
Councilor McGonigal.
Yeah, sorry, Councilor McGonigal. I can't
good.
really. Good, thank you for using that hand.
Yeah, let me put it down now. I'll lower my hand. So when we're looking at, if I may, continuing on the sewer treatment upgrade, there was 3 million budgeted in 2021. Is that a rollover?
That's a rollover, yes.
So that was not requisition, that was a grant application as well, was it not?
Correct.
So if we go forward to 2022 with a similar $3 million grant application, what is the coverage on percentage of that? 73?
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. That'll do for now. Thank you.
Yeah, and I believe staff, it's a little more clear on the budget. I think probably in the following report, I'm not sure, but you can see it flow better. And perhaps you could take a few extra moments just to describe how that works when we get there. All right. Okay, anybody else at this time on this one? Okay, so carry on, please.
Okay, so now that we've covered capital, you can see the total, the $3.45 million in capital is the very last line under the expenditures. So included in the total expenditures for the year of 3.948 is those capital expenses of 3.45. Now going through the expenses budgeted from last year to this year, there is a $30,000 increase in operating expenses, which is a 6.4% increase. So you can see there that general maintenance is up from $70,000 budget in 2021 to $90,000. And that is the biggest change, and there's some other changes there as well. So that makes up the total expenses in the sewer fund that we're budgeting for 2022. And lastly, we're going to go through the revenues. Sewer rates, those are what you see on the garbage bill for the sewer charges and the quarterly billings. The sewer facilities grant is the sewer treatment plant grant for the $3 million is 2.2. And this year, what you'll notice is from 2021 is the increase in the sewer parcel tax. That is being increased, proposed increase of $100. So the total revenue will go up to $433,000 this year. And that's an increase of $179,000. So that brings our total revenues to the 3.2 million with total expenses of 3.9 million. So it is a deficit budget. And to complete, if we were successful in getting the sewer facilities grant, we would be borrowing $742,000 from the surplus. Any questions on that page?
Okay, Councilor Vomaka, then Councilor Sandy.
So if we're not successful with the grant in 2022, we wouldn't borrow that $742,000. I'm
That's
assuming.
correct.
Okay, and then
That's correct.
And then the extra revenue from the $100 parcel tax, that would just sit in a reserve?
No, basically, if you look at what our revenues are, if you take the 3.2 and minus off in the revenues, the 2.2, you have just over $1 million in revenue. And our operating expenses in the sewer fund are half of that, almost 500,000. And normally we're doing 300,000 to 500,000 in capital. So it's just meeting our needs, or going to be just meeting our needs by doing it this way. We can't afford not to really do the increase.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and just for clarification before we carry on, when we say borrowing from surplus, we're borrowing from our surplus.
From ourselves.
Ourselves,
Yeah.
right. And we're using the term borrowing just to remind us all that we got to put it back one day.
So you put it back through parcel taxes and the like, but it's borrowing from the same fund. The sewer fund, not from any place else.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And Councillor Sandhu and then Councillor McGonigal.
Thank you. So the $7 million projection for the sewer lagoon upgrade, is that current quote or is that from last year? Just with
That's
increases.
2019 numbers, and it's being updated.
So this was 2019?
Yes. So
So we
we're getting new numbers.
Okay.
So we can expect it to go up.
So how soon would we get those numbers then? Would that be part of the budget process
It
or?
will be when we come back to you in the next couple of days.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman McGonigal?
Thank you. Through you to Ms. Gill, it was a little fast on the parcel tax portion. Can you just slowly reiterate what you had said? First of all, the current sewer parcel tax and the proposed increase, if you don't mind.
So the current parcel tax for sewer is $150. This budget increases that 150 per parcel to 250 per parcel. And that takes the parcel tax revenue from 2021 numbers of 257,000 to 433,000 for 2022.
So we're looking at a 75% increase on the parcel tax.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions for that portion?
One more, if I may follow up. So if
Yep.
we go back to the expenditures showing a deficit of $742,000, that is contingent on the $3 million grant application. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And again, you mentioned that we will be doing capital regardless. We've got some lift stations that we were doing, some I&I. But the deficit would be considerably less if we did not go forward with that project or were not successful in the grant application.
That is correct.
And
However, 2021 numbers are not yet finalized. There's still expenses and charges that need to be charged. So looking at that 102,000 amortization and loan, I believe will bring that into a deficit budget for 2021. So yeah, it won't be as large, but it might still be a small deficit there.
And I have to say that I'm a little concerned with the $100 increase in the sewer parcel tax. And that's just me. I think that's, I understand the numbers and I understand what it takes to operate the system, but that's a considerable increase for 1 year. And we are to blame for that, for not proportionately increasing the parcel tax each year. But I'm having problems with the $100 increase.
Okay.
Fair enough. And we'll look at the 5-year numbers and why that number is what we have there for discussion further along in the 5-year plan.
Good point.
And this has nothing to do with it being election year, Joseph, and keeping taxes low. I'm a taxpayer as well. And when I look at a $100 increase in parcel taxes, that's substantial considering the tax bill that we already have. So it's just me as a taxpayer thinking outside of my council seat.
No, good points. And also to note that when it does come down to the nitty gritty and we want to discuss that, it's not part of a percentage increase for your for over last year's budget. It'll be a separate line item on the tax bill. So it'll actually be like $100 increase. So we have to, when we get there, we'll have to separate that out and look at it on paper.
If I may, Your Worship. One of the conditions of the application for the sewer grant is that we have funding to finance our portion. And if we don't, then we will have to show that we are going to borrow that amount of money. So we've got a choice. So timing is an issue. If we decide that we want to borrow that funding rather than put it to a parcel tax, then that could complicate our application.
Okay, then I think that should probably become a topic of our next meeting then. If time is of the essence, and have a fulsome discussion on that. Is that time enough, Mr. Fernandez?
Yeah, well, it's entirely up to council. I mean, it could stall the application process if we don't have the funding to meet our obligations.
Okay. So my suggestion is to get through this tonight, and at the next meeting we discuss that parcel tax properly, unless I hear otherwise. Councillor Sandu, go ahead.
Thank you. So we do have the funds in our surplus. So we do have an option of either transferring from that or actually borrowing. So I'm not concerned of that in any way. We need this grant application in, and you know, this year it's very important. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, so just for clarification, Mr. Fernandez, we do have, without increasing the parcel tax, do we have enough funds to fund our portion of the project?
So the answer would be no.
Okay, so we would truly have to borrow from an outside source. Yes or no?
Yes, we would have to borrow.
Yeah, I see a shaking of the head. So perhaps Councillor Sandu, if you could ask what's on your mind, and then you'd be.
Sorry,
clearer.
so transfer from surplus, I was putting that as surplus from our general surplus,
No, from our sewer surplus.
from our sewer surplus.
Yeah, you cannot transfer surpluses between funds.
So with, okay, so let's clarify. Okay, so my mind, so the 742,000 surplus number is if we increase the parcel tax that's presented to us tonight by staff.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. That's a great clarification. Now I'm on board.
So we're moving to the water fund, or we're done?
Yeah, if there's no more questions on the sewer fund, we can move to the water fund.
Okay.
So again, we'll start with the capital. Capital in the water fund, you can see there, we're doing some fire hydrant rebudgeting of upgrades there of 61,000. The North Shore pump station needs some upgrades, that's 20,000. And there's the water mains that the superintendent would like to upgrade or replace for 300,000. So the total capital budget here is 381,000. Any questions on those items?
I don't see any hands. Mr. Fernandez, you had a.
Yeah, well, one of the things when we made the application for the water treatment plant is that we would take steps to put funds away to pay for the entire plant years down the road. And we have not done anything in terms of putting away a reserve fund for that facility. So one of the reasons we have difficulty doing that, and we will soon with the sewer treatment plant, if we don't start collecting money to pay for reserve funds and paying for the capital expenditures, then we will be in quite a situation really. So I think you can see from this budget that we have not done nothing in terms of putting away money for a reserve fund for the water treatment plant.
Councilor Vomaka.
Thank you. So the budget increase for parcel tax for water is from 346,000 up to 538,200. So what is that equating to in an increase for the water parcel tax? If it's 100 for the sewer,
100 here too.
It's also 100? Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Gill.
Okay, so just like the sewer fund, the water capital of 300,000 is the last line under the expenditures in capital. So you can tie in that number there. And in the water fund, the operating expenses have increased from 893,000 last year before capital to 906,000 this year. That is only an increase of 1.5% or $13,000. There isn't anything other than the capital. There isn't a lot of change in the expenditures in the water fund. If you scroll up, Joe, we can go through the revenues. Okay, so there's no anticipated grants or any big grant projects in the water fund. Water treatment plant being done has also wiped out the surplus in this. So we have user rates, 685,000. We have some connection, fire hydrant and other penalties and interest revenue. And then the only other main source of revenue is the water parcel tax. And that is the one that we're increasing, also recommending an increase of $100 in the water fund. And even with that increase, it seems that we can only do capital projects of 300,000 to 400,000, yet we have lots of water main breaks and lots of water mains that need replacing. And so this fund it just doesn't have any money. So user rates and parcel taxes need to be increased.
Okay, any questions or comments on that section? And Councilor McGonigal, please, if I'm scrolling back and forth here as quickly as I can, trying to catch hands. So if you don't hesitate to speak up whenever too, if I miss you.
Sounds good. Through you, if I may, Ms. Gill, can you give us the current parcel tax in water and the proposed increase, please?
It is going from $200 to $300.
Okay.
So the total parcel taxes combined between water and sewer would be 550.
Okay.
Good.
Everybody's taking notes. That's good.
Okay.
Can we move to the next?
Yes,
Have you-
please.
Okay, so moving back to the sewer fund, this shows the 5-year plan from 2022 to 2026 for the sewer fund, showing anticipated increases in user fees, the grant revenue over 2 years for the sewer treatment plant. You can see as the $5.3 million in 2022 and 2023. And then you can see the parcel tax there, gradual increase with estimated increases in lots in town. And then if the Greendale Road sewer line is put in, there is the debt borrowings to complete that. And then the borrowings need to be repaid, and we're anticipating the payment starting in 2024. So you can see there under 2022 and 2023, the transfer from surplus. Over the 2 years, if that we're successful in getting that grant application and with increasing the sewer parcel tax, we will have completely wiped out the surplus in the sewer funds. Below in the expenditures, you can see the capital from 2022 to 2026, and it's quite large. It's a total of almost $9 million over the 2 years. And most of that is for the sewer treatment plant. And after that, with the parcel tax being at the increased amount, we would be limited to capital of only $330,000 because we wouldn't have the funds. But in 2024, we are anticipating setting up a sewer treatment plant reserve and transferring $100,000 a year, so that in the future we do have when replacement or repair or upgrades need to be done, the funding is there. Any questions on the 5-year plan?
Not seeing any hands. I guess that means we can move along.
Sorry, hello, I did have one.
Oh, go ahead, Councilor Maka,
Thank
sorry.
you. Can you go over the parcel tax once more? I'm just a little bit confused because we're doing the increase or projected possible increase on the parcel tax for the sewer fund, which is $250 a year. And now when we go over to the sewer utility fund and it has parcel tax, and you're saying that we're going to put the money into reserves? I don't quite.
The parcel tax is a means of collecting revenue,
Mhm.
taxation revenue. How that revenue is spent is up to council and obviously the 5-year plan. But we do need to put away when we have assets that are worth that large money. When it comes to replacement of them in the future, they're going to cost that much more. We need to be proactive and start putting away reserves so that in the future we will have the funds when we need it so that's what, so the 100,000 would be only for the sewer treatment plant. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Not really. I'm still not getting clarified because we're increasing the parcel tax so that we have money for operating expenses. And then on this one, I'm trying to figure out how, if we're already running a deficit, how are we putting money aside then in a reserve?
You mean in the surplus?
Yeah.
So in 2024, we'll start putting small amounts. I mean, they're negligible. $1,400 starting in 2024, $11,000 in 2025. So it's what's left over after all the expenses and the transfer to reserve that will be adding to your, but it's really tight. I would ideally like to increase the parcel tax more or look at it. We may have to look at in 2025 or 2026, look at increasing that parcel tax again.
Okay, and so the transfer to the sewer treatment plant of the 100,000, that would also be a reserve then from the parcel tax?
From all of the revenue.
It's a reserve from all the sources of revenue, not necessarily the parcel tax.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
so the parcel taxes are just numbers in there to help to balance that budget, but we still would have to move money from surplus to cover the costs if we're successful in that grant. So it's not necessarily going into surplus in 2022 and 2023. It'll get used where it needs to get used. And for that big of a project, it doesn't look like there'll be any money going into surplus in those 2 years. Is that a good assessment? All right.
Yeah, that's very good.
That's correct.
If I may, Your Worship.
Yes.
Yeah, I think a little bit of clarification needs to be made on the Greendale Road sewer line. Only the benefiting users would be paying back on that. Nobody else would be putting any money into that. The debt recovery of debt would be mainly from Greendale.
And that's why it shows a recovery of debt. That's a recovery from those users, and then it's being paid out on the debt. So that is an in and an out. on the borrowings of 1.2 million.
Okay, I don't see any more hands on that section, so thank you, Ms. Gill. I guess you can move along.
Bear with me.
Okay, so,
Are we going to, oh, we're going to the water still.
yeah, that was on the bottom of that page. Okay, no, that was on the bottom there.
Bottom right.
Just a little bit. It was on the bottom of the first page, just where we were. Perfect. Okay, that's good. So this is the water fund. You can see the 2022 to 2026 numbers. You've got the user fees, which is the water rates on the annual billings and quarterly billings. The parcel tax revenue showing there, and the transfer from surplus. So we are borrowing again from surplus for 53,200 to cover the administration, the treatment and collection, and also the capital for a total budget of 1.287 million. In 2023, we have proposed an additional increase of $50 to the parcel tax, and that is required to balance the capital and also to create a water treatment plant reserve. So there's $100,000 to be put away for this plan to start next year towards the water treatment plant.
Okay, just before I look for any hands, Councilor Romaka, all I can see is the top of your head. So if you raise your hand, you're gonna have to raise it real high. There we go. And do you have a question right now, or?
There's too many things on the screen. So question when we go through the budget, because on the, where are we, the sewer utility in revenue, the user fees, they keep going up from 2022. And then when you get to 2025 and 2026, they're the same for revenues. So that means no increase. But then when we go down to the water utility fund, each year it goes up probably about $20,000 or $30,000. So I'm just wanting clarification as to why the budget is showing an increase in the water utility fund every year, but it stops and is the same in 2025, 2026.
Oh, that must be a typo in one of those numbers. So I'll fix that for the next in 2026, because it does go up. In the water fund, it's going from 755 to 785, and there would be a corresponding increase in the, so that must just be a typo. I'll have a look at that and fix that for the next budget meeting.
Okay, thank you.
All right, good catch.
Good catch, yeah.
Ooh.
Okay, no other hands? Carry on, Ms. Gill.
So this is the capital expenditures over the 5 years for the sewer treatment plant being the main one, for the sewer fund from 2022 to 2026. We've covered some of them, and we know about the Greendale extension. If there's any other questions, I can answer them, or if the superintendent is here, he can.
Don't see any hands. Carry on.
So below is the water capital over the next 5 years. So we've already covered the 2022, and basically from 2023 to 2026, it's all water line upgrades, and hopefully the one on the Footbridge as well.
Go ahead, Councilor Sandhu.
Thank you. So for the water main upgrades, there's nothing for 2025 budget? Is that?
It's on the Footbridge.
Oh,
It just
okay.
shows on a separate line. We're hoping to do the footbridge, and also there'll be a corresponding in the general fund refurbishments to that once the water line is on.
Okay, thank you.
No other hands? Oh, Councilor McGonigal, there you are. Go ahead.
Through you to the Public Works Superintendent, the Footbridge water main, is that a similar project that was done at Greendale? The upgrade of the water main at Greendale? It'll be
It is,
similar
yes,
on the Footbridge.
yes.
If I can-
Greendale one got done, this one, there wasn't enough funding for it. They were put out to tender 3-4 years ago, I believe it was. So this one we had to postpone, and hopefully we can get it done in the next few years.
So if I can continue, is it a similar infrastructure? I believe the Greendale one resided within the riverbed. Does this one reside there as well?
Oh, this has got to be lifted up.
Yeah, it,
Has to go underneath the bridge.
Okay, so similar project, thank you.
Okay, no other hands. We can carry on.
General?
Okay, so this is the general fund now, and I've kept the categories the same as the monthly statements, but this is only the expenses that we're showing for now. So we can go through first the general government expenses. We're anticipating a 6.5% increase in the budget, 56,100, and you can see where those additions are being made. Office expenses, we're noticing cost of paper, costs just with COVID, expenses are rising. So we're anticipating 10,000 there. Data processing, we've increased, or we've made on online services available. So this is contracted out. It's a monthly fee now. So that started partway through 2021. So we're budgeting the full cost for the year, an increase there of 5,000. Elections next year, so we're increasing that budget by 16.
This year.
And then the insurance, it took a big jump last year, and with what's been going on with the floods and whatnot, the insurance broker was projecting another increase, so we bumped up that budget by 20,000. So that makes up the total increases in the general government services budgets. Any questions on those?
So we're looking at a 6.5% increase in that section.
Yes, that's correct. So the protective services budget is next. This was as previously presented to council last year and approved. So you can see the increase there, and this has already been submitted to the CVRD. If there's any questions, I can attempt to answer those.
Don't see any hands.
Okay. Next, we have bylaw enforcement and other. Just a very minor increase here of $1,000. Nothing too exciting. So if we switch to the next page.
That includes building inspections.
That does. It's bylaw enforcement and other. The other is the building and animal control. Yes. So next we have the public works expenses. This budget is showing a 14.5% increase. Most of that is in wages, 45,000. and shop and yard. So basically, we've got more administration wages being charged there, and those costs have gone up. So we have road maintenance, which we've kept the same, no increase there. Garbage collection is a 0.9% increase, just $4,000. Next, we have development services. This is the ambulance building and the health center lease. So we're not anticipating any increases in the budgets there. Those are zero. Under other functions, this budget has just been put back to the 2020 budget, same. So there really is no increase. There was some additional projects that were done last year that increased that budget. So there's the Fire Smart, and as well as the poverty reduction strategy. So those budgets have been removed. Oh, and the community services budget.
So there was a question at a previous meeting about the $100,000 that was in community services, and I think Ms. Gill, you had mentioned that you were going to bring back an answer to that question, where that money actually ended up. I don't know if you looked into that.
That money is just going to go into the, is not going to be spent. So it's just an increase in the surplus, transfer to surplus in the general fund.
And would it be correct in assuming that that still has to be spent in the areas that were specified to us when we received that funding?
Yes. So we're just in the process now of preparing that schedule for the auditors. So we're spending a lot of that money, huge costs with masks and sanitizing, extra janitorial cleaning, extra washroom cleaning, all of the computer upgrades that we need to make to keep everyone safe. The online services being one of them, keeping people from coming into the office. Those sorts of expenses are all covered by the grant, and they're being applied towards that.
Councillor Sandu?
Thank you. Is there a time frame of having to use this COVID grant when we received it in 2020?
It was required to be recorded in revenue when we received it. So it went into revenue and into the surplus last year. So as we incur the expenses, they're just charged against it.
Okay. And then I'd ask a question at the finance meeting, just what was remaining and then what was put in, if that could get forwarded to council.
And that's what we're working on. It'll be part of the audited financial statements. That number will be provided and it's audited.
Thank you.
Okay, guess we can move along. But one more question. The Couch and Aquatic Center, it just seems to stay the same. Is that up for discussion or renewal or anything at any time? Councilman
After this
Donegal?
year, it's going to referendum, right?
Yes, it is in abatement until the referendum showing users, and then it will go to the electorate to see if they wish to go forward with regional recreation. So they're holding off on any increases until there is that question and the referendum. If it does not go through, there is either the possibility of an increase in the aquatic center or the return of two-tiered systems. They have held off on that pending the discussion on regional recreation, and we'll have to see where that takes us.
Thank you, Councilor McGonigal. Okay, that's all I have.
I have one question.
Go ahead, Councilor Austin.
It's just a small question. Under other functions, town economic development, we put away $1,000 a few years ago, and that continues to stay in the budget. Is that really necessary? Yeah, I know it's only $1,000, but we never
Councilor Sandu?
seem to have used it.
No,
Oh,
answer.
staff?
I just was putting my hand up.
Okay, staff?
The funding is there if we need it. We have in the past spent it. Something's come along during the year and the funds are there, so they have been spent. It's a really small immaterial number, whether we could take it out if that's a decision of council.
Thank you.
So that could be an item that we could talk about later if we're looking for ways to cut, but as mentioned, it's really a small amount. It wouldn't make a big difference, but it's still $1,000. Councillor Sandu, go ahead.
I'm just wondering if we could go back to public works expenses. Just on the garbage collection, the 0.9% increase, is that the tipping fees? Was there a tipping fee increase for 2022?
I'm not exactly sure what the tipping fee increase is, but it always does go up. So we are bumping up that expense for $4,000. Even with the tipping fee increase, it seems that the amount that we're taking has been going down, and I'm not sure if that's due to the organics or more recycling, but we don't notice the increase in garbage expenses related as high as the tipping fees. So,
okay. Can I ask one more question? Just on road maintenance, is that like paving, or is that like underground, like everything to do with roads?
Just maintenance.
Maintenance? Okay, so there's no, in today's budget, we're not addressing any paving or that kind of stuff. Okay, thank you.
All right.
I think if
Long, I guess.
Yeah. So the next item is the info center, and having run it last year, we think that there was some cost as a first-time operator. There was more cost, so we're anticipating a small reduction in those expenses. So that's showing there. Next, we have any questions on the info center? Move on to parks. So we haven't increased the budget in parks. It should be suffice for next year, we're hoping. Okay, so the next page covers Lakeview Park and the Couch and Lake Education Center. And only on this page have we included the revenues, because expenditures is sort of are a function of the revenues. So at Lakeview Park, we're anticipating, we budgeted revenues of $231,000. We're hoping that COVID doesn't come into play and have an effect there. It hasn't before, so we're not anticipating that it will. And we're showing a small surplus for the year. The main difference is that without the waterfront walkway to be used as moorage, we are going to see a drop in the moorage revenue. So other than that, there's no significant changes to that operations. Next, we have the Couch and Lake Education Center. And even as we speak, the center is being impacted by COVID. We have projected the same revenues as last year. And we're projecting a smaller loss than we budgeted last year. And hopefully the loss will again be even less than that. So.
I guess the question begging to be asked there in the past 2 years, how much have we used the COVID relief funding to subsidize that loss?
That loss has been fully subsidized by the COVID funds, because that is an allowable offset there.
So offset to zero.
Yes.
In the past 2 years. And I guess the next question begging to be asked is is that an area where we'll be looking to apply more COVID relief funding for this budget, or are we able to?
We are going to be applying for 2021, the COVID. We'll have to see what we have left once we finish the 2021 year end to see where those funds are at. Probably there'll be some left over to apply for 2022 as well.
And just a question, could be purely subjective, but probably directed towards the manager of the Couch Lake Education Center. I mean, how optimistic is this budget, or is it, how would you classify this? Optimistic, realistic, or I really don't know. Difficult question, I know, but I'd just like to hear the response.
Hi, everybody. I think it's fairly realistic. As you know, the hospitality industry, and that's what we're part of, is particularly vulnerable. And we've had some, we thought we would start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, but we keep getting cave-ins with Omicron, et cetera. And, I'm optimistic that we can pull this budget off the way we're projected, and hopefully more. In fact, up until the Omicron decided to enter our lives, we were getting a lot more bookings, a lot more interest. And in the last month, we've had most of those things canceled, but we're looking forward to, late spring and summer and early fall with the bookings that we have in place.
Okay, thank you.
Could I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Councillor Sandu, thank you.
Yeah.
So for our revenue, if I could ask the manager, Clec, you're just kind of addressed a little bit of the bookings. Do we have any bookings later spring through summer to fall that are still on the books?
Oh, for sure. Some of our biggest user groups actually are still maintaining that they want to return, and everyone is just trying to maintain that sort of positive feeling that things will start getting better in the springtime. So yes, we have a lot of springtime bookings. Interestingly enough, the bookings that we just had canceled were, like February, March, and April. And, so we're looking forward to changes, but the spring, summer, and fall are still strong as far as I'm concerned, unless there's another big hit with another change in virus, which we can't predict.
No. Can I just ask 2 more questions, please?
Yep. Go for it.
So under food supplies, I mean, the cost of food is changing, price of food is changing weekly, monthly. Do you put that into, is that but kind of budgeted when you guys do the 2022 budget? Put a higher, I'd rather see a higher amount possibly budgeted than to be under budgeted. And just looking, and I know our from 2021, just because we didn't know what we'd be able to have for bookings and whatnot. But I just know the cost of food working in this now is increasing weekly. And so I'm just concerned about that. And one more question is the housing allowance. Do we have somebody in one of our, I don't know what you call it.
Yes to that. We do have a caretaker on site.
Okay. And is there a monthly rent that's paid to the town?
Yes, there is. And that's what you're seeing on the pages in front of you.
I don't
Monthly
see
amount.
that. A housing allowance, I don't see anything for 2021 budget or actual or 2022 budget. We can talk later about that, but I just wanted to ask that question.
If you look under income, we'll make sure that that's clear for your next budget meeting.
Thank you.
And I didn't answer your first question about the food costs. We do take the food costs into consideration. The other thing that has happened to the center over the last couple of years is we've been trying to, bring groups in when we can. And because we don't have the economies of scale, our food costs go up because we've had to reduce our group size, as you well know, to 50% of what we'd normally take. And that really hurts. But if we were not to take those groups, then we would lose that possibility of having these groups coming in 22, 23, 24, et cetera. So that's why the food costs are, again, they're really difficult to put a handle on.
Thank you.
Okay, no other hands. We can move along now. Thank you.
So those are all the operating expenses, and we will come back with a complete financial, like we do the monthly financial statements. We'll come back with those at the next budget meeting.
Okay, I think we need to change pages.
That was it, right?
That was it, yeah.
That was it. That's
Oh.
all, the entire general expenditure fund.
Okay, so that is step 1, 2, and 3 complete then, thus far. So before we just go ahead and move along here, does anybody want to make some final comments on this part of it? Oh, Councillor Austin, there you are. Thank you. Go ahead.
Can you see me? I understand I'm a taxpayer too and all that, but I do agree that we have to raise the parcel taxes to fund the water and the sewer. They've been underfunded for a long time. And I've forgotten, but many years ago, I know the parcel taxes were told to me were, I believe, up to $700. So I know it's hard for people to have that extra 100 or extra 200, but we have to fund these things if we want to have our water and our sewer that we're not going to get into any problems with. So I think it's important to do that. I think this is a good move, and also to raise funds for the water treatment plant, because we will have maintenance on that. It's just like your car. You may have to have an oil change or something, and you need those kind of funds. I think that's really important to think about the future. We don't want to leave the next council with problems. I don't anyway. So that's just me. Thank you.
Thank you for those remarks. Councillor Sandhu, go ahead.
Yeah, I totally agree with Councillor Austin. As much as we don't want to increase our parcel tax, whatnot, we're going to have to look at that. We've run the water treatment plant now basically 1 full year. So would you be able to give a kind of a breakdown to council as to operating costs for 2021, in a sense of what, unexpected things that came up, different things like that, so people understand that what it costs to run this facility and what revenue is needed to offset the cost. So I think if we could understand as counselors, that may help us explaining why we're having to look at increasing the parcel taxes, and so we can put money away. Is that a possibility?
Good question. And I'm just wondering if that's covered off in the comparative section. Could you comment on that, Ms. Gill or Mr. Fernandez?
Yes, it's actually on the financial statements. If you look at the first, the 2020, 21 and 22 numbers, you will see water treatment plant where we budgeted 200 back in 2020. We spent 262 that particular year. Then we budgeted 260 again last year. And we only spent 150, but we've also been fortunate to get some monies back from some of our contractors to offset some of those expenses. Otherwise, we would have been a bit higher. So, and the treatment plant is actually, the director of Public Works could maybe talk about that. We are looking at some major or some improvements that need to be made this particular year.
Mr. Sandhu, would you care to comment?
Sure.
So just like anything else, these things require yearly, monthly maintenance. Already we're finding some of the pumps are, we've had to replace a couple, but these things just have a lifespan and they wear out. And so we have to continuously replace parts. Just like Carolyn was saying, your vehicle or something, you gotta replace parts and stuff. It's the same way. These things are all moving parts, so yeah, we got to keep a fund there to keep on replacing them. So far, there have been small pumps and cheap ones, but there's some very expensive parts in that the treatment plant that we have to have money put away. When they fail, we need funds to be able to purchase parts.
We're talking about a $7 million plant. So, you know, parts are not that cheap.
Okay, so perhaps, go ahead, Councillor Bomaka.
Thank you. That was my next question. So right now we're bringing in with the parcel tax and fees, just basically enough to maintain that treatment plant. So I might be wrong, but is it what we call asset management when we're supposed to be trying to figure out how to build another water treatment plant down the road, and where those funds will come from if we're only barely maintaining?
Yes, that's one of the components of asset management. The first being determining what your assets are, what their life cycle is, when they're going to need replacement. And the second part of that is how much is it going to cost to replace in the future? And then obviously having the funds there at that time, how are you going to come up with the cost to replace them?
So we haven't even had that discussion yet. We're just operating and maintaining what we have right now. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Councillor Sandhu brought up a very good point, and so maybe if I don't know if it wants a motion or direction to staff, but a staff report for the next committee of the whole that shows the operating expenses of the water system pre-water treatment plant, and one for this year would be a great example, just finished, how much the difference is between, is it 2018 and 2021? Would that be a fair comparison?
2020, I think. That's when it
Okay.
came into.
Yeah, it may be hard to drill down to what the actual treatment plant costs, but I think overall, yeah, it'd be a good message for us and message for the public to know that, yeah, there's a big difference. So, and perhaps if we could have that sooner, that would be great. I don't think they're hard numbers to find.
No, I mean, if you look at 2022, the total operating costs before capital are 906,000. And of the 906, 260 of that is the water treatment plant in the budget.
Okay, well, there you go. Yeah. So would that answer your question sufficiently, Councillor Sandy? No. Okay, well, we'll ask some more of those questions tomorrow, because I think with the water treatment or the water parcel tax and sewer parcel tax, I think that'll be a topic for discussion. The next meeting, if not definitely the one after that. Sorry?
You want to do that tomorrow or at the fourth meeting?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Go ahead, Councilor Donegal.
Thank you. It's going to be a difficult year, period. With proposed parcel tax increases, increased costs, supply, demand. It's going to be a very difficult year, whether it's election year or not. The impact on taxation from our municipality and the regional district is going to have significant impact on our residents, regardless. And that's a fact. We haven't even dealt with Public Works capital yet, and proposed improvements in roads and sidewalks. And So when we talk about asset management, that is a convoluted subject where we as a small community have to put probably $12 million away for a water treatment plant when the time comes for retirement of that. Small communities with only residential tax base, which we have 87% of our tax base is residential, that's a significant impact. And that's all, you know, I'm not an illusionist, but this is going to hurt a lot of people.
Thank you for those comments. You know, looking back 3 years now and knowing a little bit of the history on not only what this municipality did or didn't do, other municipalities seem to take the same approach. Was, you know, I've heard 0% tax increases and stuff like that happen, and no increases on parcel taxes and stuff like that from other communities as well. And I think it's come to bite us in the you know what, and especially with the sewer, where we have this huge project that I don't know how much longer we can slough that off. I really truly hope we are successful with this grant application, and so yeah, I got to empathize with Councilor McGonigal's comments, but at the same time, yeah. I also look back and say, I gotta say, folks, that you know, there's been some very lucrative times in our community too. So we've seen a lot of houses being built, like lots of property being developed and things like that. So you know, for myself, I know that I'm going to have to really, really reflect back and say, how bad are we? I would think that asset wise, for our residents, they're probably running higher than they ever have with their price of their home, the cost of their homes and prices of their homes and the assets they have in their driveways. So I've heard businesses that have flourished through these times. So it's going to be difficult for me to balance in my head what's acceptable and what's not, but definitely capital projects are going to be top of my mind, and figuring out how we can make those come about. So. All right, staff, where do you think you can get us? First of all, can you describe to us where we're going at the next meeting and what you'll present? So we're all clear there.
So at the next meeting, we'll bring back the full general budget with the revenues, capital, and expenses, just like we have for the water and sewer funds for to go over with council. And if that's acceptable, then we'll bring back at the next meeting the 5-year plan for
Okay.
general funds.
Now we'll have the details of capital too tomorrow that staff have arrived at.
Okay. And will all of staff be there tomorrow?
Should be, yeah.
As well. Okay. And at that time, we'll also be able to identify the preliminary budgets. I'm not going to, I could say potential decrease, but that's not going to be so, obviously. Potential increase.
Well,
what percentage that will be?
Yeah, what we will do is we'll show what the total forecast expenditures are and what it would take to balance that budget. That's what we will show. And
then upon request, we could, if there's looking for a percentage, we could
then
possibly get that in a heartbeat, correct?
No, we will tell you that.
All right.
And then you can cut some capital or services, whatever you feel appropriate.
And that's what I mentioned, you know, in the big picture, and this is what I've learned. It comes down to what level of service do we wish to provide. So in the case of if it's, you know, if we decide we want to cut something out of water, then we'd be cutting that service. We'd be underfunding or short changing that service. So, you know, that would affect the service level going forward, or we just definitely have to react like we're having to this year to maintain the service or meet the specifications that we're told we need to run those services at. So, yeah, All right. So if everybody's happy with where we're at tonight, well, we're not happy with where we're at. I mean, we're not finished, but looking forward to seeing it all put together and having those discussions. Councillor Sandy.
Just going back to my comment earlier is for people to understand like the last number of years of the user fees for our sewer and water funds, what the increase has been the last number of years and why we are where we are today, having to possibly bump it up $100, is that people need to understand what the costs and what the expenses are over the years. The expenses are increasing all the time with this. But if they could go, if we had maybe a 3-year, going back 3 years with this council as to what each year we build the residents, then we could kind of address that when we're, just finalizing this. This is why we have to make the decision we are making, because we need funds put away for an emergency, so to speak. So I don't know if that could be part of this, but just for clarity for the community, for the residents to understand why the cost, why the price, why the fee is possibly going up.
So is it possible, staff, to put together a short analysis? Doesn't have to be too big of a detail, but what the costs were back in 2018 and what they are today. Just a quick one pager, maybe. Okay. All right, folks. So moving along then to the other item, staff has run into some conflicts with tomorrow's time of 2 p.m. and has asked if we could possibly move it till 3:30. I don't know. Does that suit everybody? I see nods. Councilor McGonigal, you can make it. Councilor, go ahead.
I've been called to work.
Oh.
That's a 4-letter word.
You're not allowed to swear.
I do usually get home around 3:30, so you may see me in my work clothes when I log in. Just bear with me.
Okay, well.
If it's 3:30, I should be able to make it.
Okay. Councillor Bomaka.
I was going to say maybe 4 o'clock would be a little bit
Better?
closer for Councillor McGonigal.
Yeah.
Just
okay. Well,
that out there.
Yeah, let's, because otherwise.
You most certainly start without me and I'll join in. I'll be the late answer. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know where I sit.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Good call. Let's make it 3:30. And yeah, you'll be able to catch up, I'm sure, correct? Will we be getting any, and I don't know if you'll have access to it early enough, Councilor McGonigal, but any emails sent to us beforehand besides a Zoom invite?
Yeah, first thing in the morning.
Right,
Oh,
you'll have that report.
We should
agenda.
the report. That might come later.
Okay.
That might come later.
Just in case Councilor McGonigal has service and you can catch up somewhere. No. Okay. Okay. All right. So 3:30 tomorrow. And that brings an end. No notice of motion. We can go to question period now, where we will pause for 3 minutes for folks who may be watching on our YouTube channel that can call in to 250-749-6681, extension 102, or you can email your questions to general@lakecowichan.ca. And those questions must be to items that are contained on this agenda. Once again, the phone number is 250-749-6681, extension 102. And the email address is general@lakecowichan.ca. See you all at 6:27. All right, 6:27 it is. Mr. Fernandez.
No written or verbal complaints.
Complaints, questions. It's not a complaint period. Oh God, no, we're not having one of those in our procedures manual.
No complaints.
Yeah. Okay, no in camera, and that brings us to adjournment. Motion to adjourn by somebody, Councillor Austin, second by Councillor Vomaka. All those in favor? Opposed, none. Motion carried. Thank you very much, and we won't do any resolutions, Councillor McGonigal, until you get there with us. Working clothes or not.
All good.
Yeah.
Majority
Okay.
rules.
Yeah. No, I think it's important that everybody's in on the good discussions. Okay. Thank you, everybody. And if anybody's watching at home, thank you and have a great
Thank-
night. See you guys tomorrow at 3:30.
All right.